The alien girl claimed the human under salvage law. The first thing I heard was a girl screaming that I was hers. Not help him. Not asterisk he's alive. Not even don't touch him. She pointed at me, standing in the middle of a wrecked cargo bay with smoke curling around her boots, and shouted at 23 armed galactic soldiers. I found HIM first, SOHES mine. I remember thinking that was probably the strangest way anyone had ever saved my life. At the time, I was half-conscious, bleeding from the forehead, and trapped beneath almost 4 tons of twisted ship plating. I also had no idea that, according to alien law, she might actually have been right. My name is Daniel Mercer. I was a salvage engineer aboard the Wayfarer *, a small human recovery ship that spent most of its time picking through places sensible people stayed away from. Dead stations, abandoned colonies, battlefields, wreckage fields, anything the big corporations considered too dangerous, too remote, or simply not profitable enough to clean up themselves. It wasn't glamorous work. Most days smelled like overheated wiring, machine oil, recycled air, and whatever somebody had forgotten in the galley 3 days earlier. But it paid. And after 7 years in deep space, I'd learned one important rule. Never trust a quiet wreck. Quiet meant something was waiting. That morning, the Wayfarer had just dropped out of jump near the Kestrel Drift. The drift wasn't officially dangerous. Officially, there were no active mines, no known pirates, no unstable stars, no registered military operations. The navigation computer had given us a clean approach. That should have been our first warning. Captain Rhea Voss stared through the forward viewport at the object floating in the darkness. "That's not a freighter," she said. I looked up from the diagnostic panel. "What is it?" She didn't answer immediately. Outside, the wreck turned slowly against the stars. It was enormous, at least 300 meters long. Its hull was blackened from one end to the other, with a long section of the central spine completely torn open. I could see decks exposed to space. Cargo containers had spilled out like toys. One engine nacelle was missing. The other was still glowing faintly. That was impossible. A ship could remain powered for decades if it had emergency cells. But this thing looked like it had been dead for a century. Captain Voss leaned closer to the glass. "It's military." Our navigator, Tomas, zoomed the image. The wreck suddenly filled the main screen. There were markings near the bow. Silver. Angular. Not human. I felt something tighten in my stomach. "Galactic Coalition?" I asked. Tomas shook his head. "No." "Then what?" He enlarged the symbol. Nobody spoke for a few seconds. I'd seen that insignia before. Everyone had. The symbol belonged to the Varkesh Dominion. And the Varkesh hadn't existed for almost 60 years. Captain Voss finally whispered, "That ship should not be here." She was right. The Varkesh Dominion had collapsed after the Outer Rim War. Their soldiers were supposed to be gone. Their warships were supposed to be museum pieces. Their weapons were supposed to be locked inside military archives. But there it was, floating in front of us. Broken, silent, and somehow still transmitting a weak power signal. Captain Voss turned toward me. "Daniel." I already knew what she was going to say. I sighed. "Don't. Suit up. Rhea. We need to know what's inside." That's exactly how people end up in documentaries. She almost smiled. "Almost. 5 minutes." I looked at the wreck again, then at the suit rack. 5 minutes later, I was floating toward the dead warship with a cutting torch strapped to my thigh. I should have listened to my instincts. Instead, I followed the money. The Varkesh ship was colder than I expected. Not physically. Emotionally. There was something about walking through a place built for thousands of soldiers and finding nothing but dead lights and drifting dust. My boots touched the deck. The magnetic soles locked with a soft click. My helmet display flickered. Temperature -18. Atmospheric pressure low. Radiation elevated. Power unstable. I switched on my helmet lamp. The corridor appeared. Black walls. Bent support beams. Old emergency signs. A broken security drone lay on its side near a sealed door. Its metal shell was covered in frost. I crouched beside it. Looks like someone had a bad day. Tomas's voice came through my headset. You always say that when you're scared. I say it when I'm about to make money. You're definitely scared. Shut up. I moved deeper into the ship. The corridor eventually opened into a huge cargo chamber. Containers floated everywhere. Some were cracked. Others had been torn open from the inside. That stopped me. I stared at the damage. Ria. No answer. I tapped the transmitter. Captain. Static. Then her voice. Signal interference. We're getting electromagnetic spikes. That's convenient. Get what you can and come back. I looked toward the far end of the chamber. There was a faint green light under a pile of wreckage. My curiosity won. I walked over. The light was coming from a small emergency beacon. Beside it was a body. At first, I thought it was a Varkesh soldier. Then I realized it wasn't. It was human. A man. My own height. Wearing an old EVA suit. The suit was torn open around the shoulder. His visor was cracked. I stared at him. There was no reason for a human to be aboard a Varkesh warship abandoned 60 years ago. I knelt. The helmet was empty. Just a dead man's suit. Then something moved behind me. I spun around. Nothing. My pulse hammered. I lifted my weapon. Who's there? No answer. Then I heard it. A soft metallic scraping sound. From inside the wall. I backed away. The wall exploded. Something huge slammed into me. My shoulder hit the deck. My weapon flew away. I saw claws. Long black claws. They came down toward my helmet. I rolled. The claws struck the floor where my head had been. Sparks erupted. I grabbed my emergency cutter and jammed it into the creature's side. It screamed. Not like an animal. Like a person. The creature pulled back. I kicked it. It disappeared into the smoke. I scrambled toward my weapon. Another impact threw me across the room. My back struck a container. Pain exploded through my ribs. I couldn't breathe. Then the ceiling came down. For several seconds, there was nothing. No sound. No light. Just pressure. Metal crushing my legs. My helmet alarm screaming. I tried to move. Nothing. I tried again. Still nothing. Ria. Static. Ria, I need. The radio died. My visor displayed a red warning. Oxygen 11 minutes. I laughed. I don't know why. Maybe because sometimes your brain does strange things when you're trapped under a warship. Great, I whispered. I closed my eyes. 10 minutes. Maybe less. Then I heard footsteps. Vast. Light. Someone was running. A voice shouted in a language I didn't understand. A beam of white light cut through the smoke. I opened my eyes. A face appeared above me. She wasn't human. She had pale blue skin, large amber eyes, dark hair pulled into a rough braid. Two small ridges ran from her temples toward her ears. She wore a patched pressure suit with half the armor missing. There was blood on her cheek. She stared down at me. I stared back. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she said something in her language. I couldn't understand a word. I lifted one trembling hand. English. She blinked. Then surprisingly she answered. Human. Her accent was strange, but it was English. I almost cried from relief. Yeah. She looked behind herself, then back at me. Are you alive? Technically. She crouched. Can you move? My legs are under 6 tons of ship. She looked at the metal, then at me. Then she smiled. It was a strange smile. Not comforting. More like someone who had just found exactly what she'd been looking for. You are very valuable. I frowned. What? She reached into her belt, pulled out a small scanner, ran it over my chest. The scanner chirped. Her eyes widened. Oh. That single word worried me more than anything else. What? She looked toward the corridor. Soldiers are coming. What soldiers? Galactic Recovery Forces. That's good. No. She grabbed my arm. They will take you. I'm injured. I know. They'll help. She shook her head. They will classify you as recovered property. I stared at her. Property. She nodded. Salvage law. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. What does that mean? She leaned closer. It means whoever legally finds you first owns the salvage rights. I laughed. She didn't. Wait. I looked at her. Are you telling me you found me, so now you own me? She tilted her head. Yes. I stared at her. She stared back. You're kidding. No. That's insane. Your laws are strange too. I don't have laws saying people are cargo. She shrugged. You're not cargo. That's reassuring. You're much more valuable. Somehow that made it worse. She smiled again. My name is Sierra. Daniel. Daniel. She repeated my name quietly, like she was testing how it sounded. Then the corridor shook. A deep metallic boom rolled through the wreck. Sierra looked up. They're here. I heard voices. Multiple. Boots striking metal. Weapons charging. Sierra suddenly became serious. Daniel. Yeah. If they ask, I found you. I gathered that. No. She grabbed my face gently and turned it toward hers. Her amber eyes were intense. You have to say it. Say what? That you belong to me under salvage law. I stared at her. You're asking me to say I belong to an alien girl I met 30 seconds ago. Yes. That sounds terrible. It will keep them from taking you. Still sounds terrible. The first soldier appeared through the smoke. Black armor. Galactic Coalition insignia. Rifle raised. Behind him came another. Then another. Sierra stood between them and me. She pulled a small plasma pistol. The soldiers stopped. Their commander stepped forward. He was enormous. At least 2 meters tall. 4 arms. Heavy silver armor. His helmet opened with a hiss. Step away from the human. Sierra didn't move. The commander looked at me, then at her. By authority of the Galactic Salvage Commission, the recovered human is under coalition protection. Sierra's expression hardened. No. The commander frowned. State your claim. Sierra raised her chin. I found him first. A soldier behind the commander laughed. The commander didn't. Identify your salvage license. Sierra pulled a metal disc from her belt. The commander scanned it. His face changed. Your license is valid. I know. You are registered as an independent salvager. Yes. And you recovered this human alive. Yes. The commander looked at me, then at the wreckage around me, then back at Sierra. You understand the human is classified as sentient. Sierra nodded. Yes. Sentient beings cannot be owned. She smiled. I didn't say owned. The commander narrowed his eyes. Then what exactly are you claiming? Sierra stepped forward. Her voice became loud enough for everyone in the cargo bay to hear. Protective salvage custody. The commander stared at her. You are invoking Clause 17. Yes. A murmur moved through the soldiers. I didn't understand. Sierra looked back at me. Then she shouted the sentence that would become infamous across 3 star systems. I found HIM first, so he's mine. Silence. Absolute silence. Even I didn't know what to say. The commander finally rubbed one hand over his face. That's not how Clause 17 works. Sierra pointed at me. He was abandoned in a hazardous wreck. He is not abandoned. He was trapped under structural debris. Yes. I recovered him. You have not recovered him. Sierra glanced at the metal crushing my legs. Then at me. Technically, no. I almost laughed. She looked back at the commander. But I have established first contact salvage. The commander sighed. You cannot claim a living person. I can claim responsibility. That is different. Not under RIM salvage code. The soldiers began whispering. I couldn't hear all of it, but I heard one word repeatedly. Human. Another soldier stepped closer. Commander, the coalition database shows humans are protected under emergency diplomatic status. The commander looked at me again. Where is your vessel? I answered. About 300 meters outside. Call it. I tried my radio. Dead. Sierra immediately stepped in. His communications were damaged. The commander looked at her. How do you know? Because I checked. You've been inside this wreck how long? 40 minutes. The commander glanced at his scanner. His expression changed again. 40 minutes. Sierra nodded. How did you survive the reactor breach? She shrugged. Carefully. He stared at her. Then at me. Then at the wreck. Something wasn't right. I could feel it. The commander raised his rifle. Move aside. Sierra didn't. I'm giving you one final order. No. Sierra then, by authority of the coalition. No. She didn't shout this time. She simply said it. Quietly. And somehow that sounded more dangerous. The commander lifted his rifle. I pushed against the wreckage. Pain shot through my legs. Sierra. She looked at me. Move. I can't. You have to. No. Why? She looked at the soldiers. Then at me. Because I haven't finished recovering you. The commander fired. Sierra moved faster than I thought possible. She grabbed my shoulder and pulled. The plasma bolt struck the metal beside my head. The ceiling exploded. More wreckage came down. Sierra covered me with her body. I heard soldiers shouting. Weapons firing. Something massive hit the cargo bay wall. Then the lights went out. For a few seconds, everything was black. When emergency lights came back on, the soldiers were gone. Not dead. Just retreating. Sierra was breathing hard. Blood ran from a cut above her eyebrow. I looked at her. "You're insane." She smiled. "So I have been told." Getting me out of that wreck took 43 minutes. I know because I watched the timer on my helmet. Sierra worked the entire time. She used a cutting torch, a mechanical jack, 2 emergency charges, and apparently a piece of equipment she wasn't supposed to have. She kept talking while she worked, mostly to herself, sometimes to me. "Don't close your eyes." "I'm trying." "No, you're not. I've been awake for 16 hours. "You're lying." "I've been awake for 20. "Worse." "You always this bossy." "Yes." "Good to know." At one point she stopped. She looked at my legs. Then at me. "This will hurt." "How bad?" She thought about it. "Very." "That's not useful." "I am being honest." Then she activated the cutter. I screamed. I won't pretend I handled it well. I didn't. I swore at her. I swore at the ship. I swore at my ancestors. Sierra never complained. When the final piece of metal lifted away, she caught my head before it hit the floor. "Daniel." I could barely see her. "Still alive?" "Yes." "Good." She touched my cheek. "You are difficult to recover." "Sorry." "Don't be." Then she pulled me into her arms. I remember thinking how strange it felt. Her body was warm. Warmer than mine. She smelled faintly of metal and some kind of sharp herbal soap. She carried me through the wreck. Not dragged. Carried. She wasn't much bigger than me, but she somehow managed it. When we reached the outer corridor, I saw why. There was a small machine following her. 4 legs. Round body. Blue lights. It hovered beneath me and projected a support field. "Your robot." "My assistant." "It has a name." "Yes." "What?" "Bix." The machine beeped. "Hello, Bix." It beeped again. Sierra frowned. "What did it say?" "You understand it." "Yes." "What did it say?" She looked embarrassed. "It called you heavy." I laughed, then immediately regretted it. "Don't make me laugh." "Sorry." She wasn't sorry. The Wayfarer picked us up 12 minutes later. Captain Voss nearly shot Sierra when she saw her. Then she saw me. Then she nearly cried. Rhea wasn't a person who cried easily. She crouched beside the medbay stretcher. "Daniel." "Hi." "You idiot." "Good to see you too." She grabbed my hand. For a moment she said nothing. Then she looked at Sierra. "What happened?" Sierra answered calmly. "He was trapped." "You found him." "Yes." "You saved him." "Yes." Captain Voss looked at me. "Is she telling the truth?" "Mostly." Sierra frowned. "Mostly. You did shoot 3 coalition soldiers." "They shot first." "That is technically true." Rhea rubbed her forehead. "Daniel, you were missing for nearly an hour." "I know. We thought you were dead." "Sorry." You're buying the next 6 rounds. Fair. Then alarms started screaming. Everyone froze. The ship shook. Rhea ran to the cockpit. I tried to sit up. Bad idea. Sierra pushed me back down. Stay. What's happening? Ships. How many? She looked at the sensor display. Her face changed. Too many. Rhea's voice came over the intercom. Everyone strap in. The Wayfarer accelerated. Outside the medical bay window, stars stretched into lines. Then the view changed. A fleet had arrived. Not coalition. Varkesh. At least 12 warships. Old. Black. Angular. Dead-looking. But moving. Rhea whispered. How? Sierra stood beside the window. Her face had gone pale. They followed the human signal. I looked at her. What signal? She didn't answer. Then the largest ship opened fire. The Wayfarer shook violently. Medical equipment flew from the walls. I grabbed the bed rail. Sierra fell against me. For a second, we stared at each other. Then she whispered, They're not here for the wreck. What are they here for? You. I spent the next hour learning things nobody had bothered to tell me. Humans were rare. Not extinct. Not primitive. Rare. Very rare. Earth had joined the Galactic Coalition only 9 years earlier. Most humans lived inside a handful of protected systems. We were considered unpredictable, physically resilient, extremely adaptable, and politically inconvenient. Apparently, the Varkesh had once been obsessed with humans. During the Outer Rim War, human mercenaries had fought against them. Not large armies. Small units. Squads. Crews. Engineers. The Varkesh had documented everything. How humans repaired ships under fire. How they survived injuries. How they kept fighting when their equipment failed. The records described us as dangerous because we didn't behave like most species. We didn't retreat when survival odds became unfavorable. We improvised. We used broken equipment. We turned maintenance tools into weapons. We kept going. The Varkesh called it a biological defect. Humans called it Tuesday. But there was something else. Something far worse. The wreck we had found wasn't just a warship. It was a prison transport. And the human body inside the suit wasn't dead. He was sleeping. Frozen in a medical chamber. A survivor from the original war. His name was Elias Mercer. My grandfather. I stared at the identification file for a long time. That's impossible. Captain Voss stood behind me. We checked the DNA 3 times. I shook my head. My grandfather died before I was born. Apparently not. Sierra stood near the door. She was quiet. Too quiet. I looked at her. You knew. She didn't answer. Sierra. She looked at me. I knew there was a human. You knew it was my grandfather. No. Then why did you say I was valuable? She looked down. Because your genetic marker triggered the Varkesh beacon. What does that mean? She hesitated. Then finally said, The ship was waiting for you. The room went silent. Rhea stared at her. Why? Sierra looked at me. I don't know. Then the ship shook again. Another attack. The lights flickered. Rhea cursed. Whatever is happening, we need to get away from this system. She looked at me. Can you travel? No. You have to. I figured. Sierra stepped forward. I can help. Rhea gave her a suspicious look. You've already helped enough. Sierra didn't react. I know the Varkesh systems. Because my people worked with them. That got everyone's attention. I stared at her. You were Varkesh. No. Then. My father was. The room became very quiet. Sierra's hands tightened. He was a technician aboard their fleet. Rhea looked at me. Then at her. You knew what that wreck was. Yes. And you went inside anyway. Yes. Why? Sierra looked toward the window. Because I was looking for someone. Who? She didn't answer. The ship shook again. A red warning flashed across the wall. Hull breach. Rhea grabbed the nearest rail. Everybody move. Sierra looked at me. Daniel. Yeah. If we survive this, you need to trust me. I stared at her. You claimed me under salvage law. Yes. You shot soldiers for me. Yes. You carried me out of a collapsing warship. Yes. And you haven't explained why. She looked at me. Her amber eyes were tired. But steady. I found you. She said it softly. And I don't abandon things I find. We escaped the Kestrel drift by doing something no sane pilot would have attempted. We flew through the wreckage field. Not around it. Through it. Rhea took manual control. The Wayfarer twisted between broken ships while Varkesh destroyers fired behind us. Metal fragments slammed against the shields. The cockpit screamed with warnings. Tomas was shouting coordinates. Rhea was shouting at Tomas. Sierra was holding onto my bed. And I was trying not to pass out. Then one of the Varkesh ships locked onto us. A targeting beam crossed the hull. Rhea saw it. Brace. The missile launched. I watched it through the medical bay window. It was coming straight at us. Sierra moved. She grabbed a loose emergency battery and threw it through the open maintenance hatch. I stared. What are you doing? Trust me. The battery drifted outside. The missile adjusted. Its targeting system locked onto the larger power signature. It turned. The battery exploded. The missile detonated far enough away that the shockwave only knocked us sideways. I stared at Sierra. She shrugged. Improvisation. I laughed. That's our thing. She looked at me. Maybe. Then the jump engines activated. Space folded. The stars vanished. And we were gone. We spent 2 days hiding inside an abandoned mining station. I slept most of the first day. When I woke, Sierra was sitting beside the bed. She was repairing a small mechanical device. I watched her for a while. You're still here? She looked up. Yes. Why? She smiled. Salvage custody. Right. Also, I was worried. That answer caught me off guard. She returned to her work. I looked at my legs. Medical braces. Painkillers. 2 broken bones. Nothing permanent. Can I ask you something? Yes. Why did you really save me? She didn't answer immediately. Finally she said, because you were alone. That happens. Not like that. She put the device down. My father used to tell me that every person deserves someone who comes back for them. I didn't say anything. He died during the war, she continued. I spent years searching old Varkesh wrecks for his records. Did you find them? Yes. She looked at the floor. He wasn't a soldier. I figured. He was a mechanic. She smiled faintly. He kept ships alive. Sounds familiar. Yes. She looked at me. When I found you, I thought. She stopped. What? That maybe the universe was giving something back. I didn't know what to say. So I said the first thing that came into my head. That's a lot of responsibility for a guy with 2 broken legs. She laughed. It was the first time I'd heard her laugh. It sounded surprisingly human. 3 days later, coalition forces arrived. This time there were hundreds. They surrounded the station. The commander from the wreck came aboard. His name was Commander Thane. He walked into the medical bay with 4 soldiers. Sierra stood between us. Thane sighed. Please don't make this difficult. Sierra crossed her arms. You're the one who keeps making it difficult. He looked at me. Daniel Mercer. Yes. You are under coalition protection. Okay. You will be transferred to a secure medical facility. Okay. Sierra looked at me. I looked back. Something about the situation felt wrong. Thane continued. You are also a diplomatic asset. I raised an eyebrow. A what? Your genetic lineage has historical significance. Because my grandfather was a prisoner. Because your grandfather was one of the humans who defeated the Varkesh command network. I stared at him. What? Thane pulled up a holographic record. It showed a human soldier standing beside a damaged reactor. The image was old, grainy, but I recognized the face. My grandfather. Elias. He looked younger, harder, alive. The record showed him standing with several Varkesh prisoners. Behind him was the same warship we had just escaped. Thane continued. Your grandfather was presumed dead after sabotaging the Varkesh flagship. I shook my head. So he survived. Yes. And they froze him. Yes. Why? We don't know. Sierra stepped closer. Then why does the coalition want Daniel? Thane looked at her. Because the Varkesh fleet has reactivated. Sierra's expression changed. And the fleet has identified Daniel Mercer as the genetic descendant of their primary adversary. Silence. I stared at him. That's why they're attacking us. Yes. Because of my grandfather. Yes. I laughed. It wasn't funny. So I'm being hunted because my grandfather annoyed some aliens 60 years ago. Essentially. Sierra looked at me. Daniel. Yeah. I have an idea. That usually scares me. It should. Her idea was simple. And completely insane. We would go back. Back to the Varkesh flagship. Not to fight. To wake my grandfather. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. The coalition refused. Sierra stole a shuttle. Rhea helped. Tomas complained. I followed because apparently I had stopped making good decisions. The flagship was waiting inside the Kestrel drift. It was enormous. Black metal. Dead engines. Hundreds of thousands of years of dust. We docked through an abandoned military port. Sierra led the way. I followed. She knew exactly where she was going. How? My father showed me the schematics. We entered the central command chamber. At the far end was a large glass cylinder. Inside floated an old man. Human. White hair. Scarred face. Connected to machines. I couldn't breathe. Grandpa. Sierra stood beside me. That's him. I stepped closer. My hand touched the glass. The old man's eyes opened. For 1 second he didn't move. Then he whispered, "Daniel." My knees almost gave out. I pressed my forehead against the glass. "How do you know me?" He smiled. "Because your mother sent me your picture." I started crying. I didn't care. I had never met the man. Never heard his voice. Never seen him alive. But somehow, standing there, I felt like I'd been missing him my entire life. Then the room shook. My grandfather looked past me. At Sierra. His expression changed. "Who is she?" Sierra raised her hand. "I'm Sierra Venn." His eyes narrowed. "Venn?" "Yes. Your father. Eric Venn." My grandfather stared at her. Then slowly smiled. "Your father saved my life." Sierra froze. "What?" "He repaired my suit after the evacuation." Her eyes filled with tears. "He was alive. For a while." "What happened?" "He stayed behind." Sierra covered her mouth. My grandfather continued. "He told me that one day someone would come looking for him." Sierra whispered, "I did." My grandfather nodded. "I know." The flagship shook again. Warning lights flashed. Varkesh soldiers were coming. My grandfather looked at me. "Daniel." "Yes." "You need to leave." "I just found you." "I know." "I can't." He smiled. "You sound like your grandmother." I almost laughed. Then the doors exploded. Varkesh soldiers flooded the chamber. Sierra drew her weapon. My grandfather shouted, "Don't shoot." Everyone froze. A Varkesh commander stepped forward. His armor was old. His face was scarred. He looked at me. Then at my grandfather. Then at Sierra. He lowered his weapon. Finally, my grandfather stared. "You're still alive." The commander nodded. "For 63 years. Why did you wake me?" The Varkesh commander looked at me. "Because the Dominion has chosen a new war." I felt cold. "With whom?" He looked directly at me. "Humanity." The battle began 3 minutes later. We didn't start it, but we ended up in the middle of it. Coalition ships arrived. Varkesh ships responded. The drift filled with weapons fire. The old flagship came alive. Lights burned through corridors. Engines screamed. Machines that had been silent for decades woke one by one. My grandfather stood in the command chamber. He was weak. He could barely walk. But when he touched the central console, every screen came alive. "Give me access." The Varkesh commander hesitated, then obeyed. My grandfather studied the battlefield. "Daniel." "Yeah." "Your people still use distributed command." "Yes." "Good." "Why?" "Because centralized systems are easy to destroy." He smiled. Then he began giving orders. Not to the coalition. Not to the Varkesh. To everyone. He opened a channel. Every ship heard him. "This is Elias Mercer." The battlefield went silent. Even the coalition stopped firing. My grandfather continued. "I fought your Dominion once." He looked at the Varkesh commander. "You lost." The commander nodded. "You're right." My grandfather looked toward the coalition channel. "You want to fight again?" No one answered. "Then listen carefully." He displayed a map. A hidden location appeared. A massive fleet was gathering there. Hundreds of ships. Not Varkish. Something older. Something neither side had known about. My grandfather looked at me. The Varkesh weren't preparing to attack humanity. I stared at the screen. Then who? He answered quietly. The people who built them. We didn't understand at first. Then the evidence appeared. The Varkesh Dominion had not created their military technology. They had inherited it. Their ships, their weapons, their artificial intelligence. Everything. From an extinct civilization. Except that civilization wasn't extinct. It had been sleeping. Waiting. The Varkesh had been their soldiers. The war had been engineered. Humans had been pushed into conflict with the Varkesh. The coalition had been manipulated. And now someone wanted both sides exhausted enough to conquer them. My grandfather had discovered the truth during the original war. That's why the Varkesh had imprisoned him. That's why the old ship had been hidden. That's why the beacon had activated when I arrived. It wasn't calling the Varkesh. It was warning us. The real enemy was coming. And they were already inside the system. The first enemy ships appeared 30 minutes later. They were unlike anything I'd ever seen. No engines. No visible weapons. No lights. Just massive black shapes moving silently through space. Then every screen on the flagship turned red. Incoming. My grandfather looked at me. You're going to have to do something. I laughed nervously. I'm a salvage engineer. Exactly. He pointed toward the engineering console. Everyone else knows how to fight. He smiled. You know how to make broken things work. I went to engineering. Sierra followed. We found the main reactor half dead. The ship had been inactive for 63 years. Systems were failing everywhere. I looked at the control panel. Bix. Her little machine rolled into the room. Sierra looked at me. You remember Bix? Of course. Good. Bix beeped. What did he say? He says he hates humans. Tell him I appreciate the honesty. We worked. Not elegantly. Not perfectly. We bypassed systems. Rerouted power. Cut damaged circuits. Used parts from 3 different engines. At one point, I had to crawl inside a maintenance shaft while the ship shook around me. Sierra held the flashlight. You okay? No. Good. Why good? Because you're still honest. We laughed. Then the reactor came alive. Power surged through the ship. The flagship moved. Slowly at first. Then faster. The old warship turned toward the enemy. Every weapon came online. Outside, Coalition and Varkesh ships formed a line. For the first time in 60 years, they fought together. And humans were in the middle. The battle lasted 27 minutes. It felt like 3 days. Enemy ships tore through the fleet. Coalition fighters swarmed them. Varkesh destroyers fired everything they had. The flagship took hit after hit. My grandfather stayed on the command deck. Sierra stayed with me. At one point, the main reactor began to fail. I knew what that meant. The ship would lose shields. Then weapons. Then life support. I looked at the readings. We need more power. Sierra shook her head. There's nothing left. I looked around engineering. Then I saw something. The old human escape pods. Those have independent reactors. Yes. Can we connect them? Sierra stared. You want to use escape pods as auxiliary power? Yes. They're not designed for that. Neither am I. She smiled. Do it. We ripped 6 pods out of their docking systems, connected them directly to the reactor. The power spike was enormous. The flagship's weapons came back online. The enemy fleet suddenly lost its advantage. One by one, their ships began collapsing. Then silence. The black ship stopped moving. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then the coalition channel crackled. Are they dead? My grandfather answered. No. He looked at me. They're retreating. The enemy fleet vanished into deep space. The battle was over. 3 weeks later, the galaxy knew my name. I hated it. News networks called me a hero. I wasn't. I had fixed an old reactor. That's all. Sierra became famous too. Mostly because someone had recorded her shouting. I found HIM first, so he's mine. The clip spread everywhere. I couldn't go into a station without hearing someone whisper it. One time, a bartender pointed at me and said, "Salvage property." I told him to shut up. Sierra laughed for 10 minutes. But something strange happened after the war. The Galactic Council changed the salvage law. Clause 17 was rewritten. Living sentient beings could no longer be claimed as property. Instead, the finder could petition for temporary protective custody. Sierra received the first new license. She framed it. I asked why. She said, "Because it proves I was right. You weren't. I saved you. That's not the same thing." She smiled. "You're still here." "Yes." "Then I was right." I didn't argue. My grandfather lived another 4 years. He spent most of that time teaching young human engineers. Sierra visited him often. They talked for hours. About her father. About the war. About ships. About things I never understood. Before he died, he gave me his old maintenance wrench. It was scratched, bent, ugly, worth almost nothing. He put it in my hand. "You know what makes humans dangerous?" I smiled. "Stupidity." He laughed. "No. Coffee." "Close." He looked toward Sierra. She was standing by the window. Then he looked back at me. Humans don't like leaving people behind. I closed my hand around the wrench. He died the next morning. Quietly. In his sleep. Sierra was there. So was I. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. A year later, I left the Asterisk Wayfarer Asterisk. Captain Voss pretended she wasn't sad. She gave me a toolbox. Then she gave Sierra one too. "You're both terrible influences on each other," she said. Sierra smiled. "Thank you." That wasn't a compliment. I know. We bought a small salvage ship. It was ugly. Slow. Half the paint was missing. The engines made a noise that worried everyone except me. I loved it immediately. We named it the Asterisk Second Chance Asterisk. Bix came with us. He complained. Constantly. Our first job took us back toward the Kestrel Drift. There was an old station out there. Abandoned. No registered life signs. No active power. Perfect salvage. We floated toward it. Sierra stood beside me on the bridge. "You think there will be anything useful?" "Probably not." "Then why are we going?" I looked at the station. Then at her. "Because nobody else wants to." She smiled. The ship docked. We opened the hatch. Cold air drifted through. I stepped inside. Sierra followed. For a few seconds, everything was quiet. Then something beeped. Bix rolled around the corner. He scanned the corridor. His lights flashed. Sierra looked at me. What? Bix beeped again. What does he say? She stared at the scanner. Then her expression changed. There are life signs. I sighed. Of course there are. Sierra reached for her weapon. Then she looked at me. Daniel. Yeah. Her smile returned. I found them first. I laughed. You're not claiming anyone. She raised an eyebrow. We'll discuss that later. We walked deeper into the station. And that's how it started again. Another wreck. Another mystery. Another person waiting in the dark. Only this time I wasn't afraid. Because I'd learned something out there. Sometimes the universe doesn't send you what you were looking for. Sometimes it sends you someone who refuses to leave you behind. And sometimes the strangest sentence in the galaxy, I found him first so he's mine, isn't about ownership at all. Sometimes it's simply another way of saying, I found you when nobody else did, and I stayed.